Selling free is just as hard as selling $7.
The same service you provide 100 people is a lot harder to provide 100,000 people. But one of the best ways generally is you take the one thing people love about your offer and give them the test drive version of it.
What's universal? Is there a step back that I can make and pull in a bigger pile of names into this world?
They're far more likely to focus on a need than a pain, right? They're going to focus on the opportunity instead of the deficit. Welcome to Marketing from the Edge podcast. I'm Cody Alexander. I've directly generated over $200 million in net revenue over the last 5 years through innovative marketing and a numbers-first strategy. Joined with me is my dad. John Alexander has become the go-to expert in the direct marketing field, generating over $1.5 billion in revenue over the last 5 years. Sought by both board of directors and nine-figure businesses, he is an owner/founder of Centurion Publishing and is on the journey of growing this brand new business from 0 to 100 million in annual revenue. Today, we're unpacking one of the most intimidating parts of starting or scaling any business. You've got your offer, you're making money, but how do you break through the next ceiling? How do you go from 1 to 10 million or 100 to 500 million? The one thing most businesses will put off is addressing the front of house. And I'm not talking about your receptionist or your website. It's actually one of the hardest parts of business, front end growth. We share why so many businesses struggle, give breakdowns on how to make it work, and share specific examples of what you can do. If you're not afraid of doing the hard things, you're going to love this episode. We've really spent a lot of time talking about monetization, building teams, and these other critical components of a business, right? But in my experience, one of the most intimidating parts of business is the front of house. And by that, I mean getting new people to come into your world. Not just the making money aspect, but scaling.
Yeah, exactly. So in essence, the term is leads, but that means a lot to a lot of different companies. So there were companies we worked with that leads meant I had an email address off of a website, right?
Yeah.
Somebody filled out a thing and did it. There's other companies that leads meant, hey, I had full-on contact information with phone numbers and they had requested a book or something like that I shipped out to them. So now they moved up the category a little bit.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different ways and aspects of going about this, right? Some people call leads, right? If they paid something, right? Whether it's 99 cents or $1,000 doesn't mean, hey, now we have a lead that now we can convert to something else.
At the end of the day, one of the terms I try to use that's far more interchangeable, but means the same thing to everyone is opportunity. Whether a lead's a buyer or whatever is like, we're talking about the opportunity, how to take someone who has no either awareness or has spent no money with you and bring them into your world and try to pull them through to whatever the products are. So that way they're in your circle of influence.
Yeah, exactly. And an opportunity means a lot of different things. So I was on a call earlier this week, and one of the things that came up was, what are we all trying to accomplish? For me, it's fairly simple. In the content part of the machine, you're trying to get people to engage with you. I judge it by engagement. Are they paying attention? Are they opening the messages? Are you standing for something? Or are you just talking about stuff in the middle all the time? If you can get an engagement part in that world, then it's much easier to take that opportunity or lead and then get them to take the next step or the next step. The first step, though, just getting them to giving their time and attention to you for whatever length of time, whether it's 10 seconds or 30 seconds, that's the first step. And that's what really starts to move people through this opportunity cycle.
I know this is somewhat of a side tangent. I know one of the first arguments you ever get into is as soon as you bring up the word engagement is, measure, right? They're like, oh, all this pixel and all this, whatever.
Yeah.
The fact is, if you have a way to measure engagement and it's consistent, consistency is reliability. And that's the most important part.
No, it's a good point, right? Because there's 7,000 metrics.
It's not perfection.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a benchmark.
Use what you have right now.
So, I just want to get that out of the way. But going back to it, the way I look at it is you kind of have your back end. This is your small pipe. Lots of output, but it's a small pipe. Only so many things can go through it, but there's a lot of output. On the front end, you have a massive pipe, but not as many people make it through, right? It's far more of a funnel. Wow, marketing term.
Yeah.
But good job.
Hey, there you go, Cody.
You're right. There's a funnel. There's a genius concept. But, it genuinely is more of like a funnel, wide open, very narrow amount of people get through, and even more so on the back end. This is your opportunity to go wide. One of the truths in marketing is that with the back end, you can go way faster in business because you're making a lot more money off of every purchase, right? And then the front end, it's a lot harder, but you can go way bigger.
Exactly. The reality is there's 1,000 ways to do it. Frank Kern made this really famous where you brought leads into his environment, forget the funnel world, right? If they get leads in his ecosystem and environment,
right?
And then he was focused on $10,000 sales. He had fewer of those than if he had done $2,000 sales, or fewer of those than if he'd done $70 sales. But he decided to go up. And then those that after a period of time didn't buy that, then he downsold them into his lower ticket stuff, right? Primarily, I've always gone the other direction in almost every business, is typically go up, right?
Right.
So you basically take guys that are aware of you, then you get them to make that first purchase at whatever level, $7 to $99, and then you get them to make the next purchase and the next purchase. And as you get up there, it obviously gets smaller and smaller number of people that are willing to spend or capable of spending more and more money with you.
Yep. I want to get a little tactical here. So I think that strategically, everything we've said is sound. But one of the biggest questions in business is, how do I scale? They feel like they're facing a giant brick wall. And they're like, no matter how many times I throw this offer at the brick wall, I can't break through. And one of the ways you can break through that barrier is through front end. I do want to talk about taking an offer that's working and breaking it down into something that has a little more mass appeal. If it has mass appeal, generally you want it to be a little bit easier to fulfill. The same service you provide 100 people is a lot harder to provide 100,000 people. But one of the best ways generally is you take the one thing people love about your offer and give them the test drive version of it. If you look at your offer like, hey, how do I let them test drive this? I think 9 times out of 10, you will come up with something that has mass market appeal, but preserves the main offer. You're not selling them the car for a smaller price. You're letting them fall in love with the car at that price. If you can do that, you can move more people through to the end offer. And, there's plenty of terms for it where it's like, congruency or match. You give them more of what they want, but some of those things can be hard to chew on when you're trying to build it. And one of the best ways I found is thinking about it like a test drive and letting them fall in love with the car, fall in love with the thing that makes your product unique.
If you think about it, that's somewhat what Silicon Valley always did. You got a 10 or 7 or 15-day trial offer to test drive whatever it was. And now, if you look at most virus softwares, there's a limited version, right? People get in, they understand what's going on, and then they try to get them into the more advanced versions. Selling free is just as hard as selling $7. So it's that same concept. But one successful product we had back at Legacy was we've had all these individual editors, and they had all their individual pubs. And what we wanted to do was basically create the whole enchilada, right? Like you got everything that was ever created in that. Typically, if you think about a newsletter, you go up the world, right? Now you're looking at a $15,000 to $20,000 purchase. And that purchase, primarily the best way to make that purchase is over the phone because it's a much higher dollar purchase. You have a lot fewer people that are sitting at the computer hanging out this morning and pull out a credit card and put 20 grand on it.
Yep.
It just is a different level. So we created a sales presentation and offered a test drive version. So for $99, they got access to the entire thing for 30 days. After 30 days, we charge them automatically. They're like, hey, after 30 days, I agree to be billed unless I let you know.
You assume they want the product unless they tell you otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. It was a way to sell a higher dollar product at a lower price point and get a lot more people to test drive it. The main thing, since they didn't even know they existed 24 hours before, is you get a huge amount of awareness about this product. Off of that awareness about the product, only a small portion actually took advantage of the 99 test drive or bought, but it gave you those other people that at least knew it existed. And now when the sales guys called in, it was a different story because now they're not trying to tell them, explain to them something that they didn't know existed.
Right.
Now they're just trying to figure out the needs or whatever. So
right now you're focusing on the pain point.
Yeah. So to your point, like if you can take a piece of it and get somebody ability to test drive it, you got a chunk of those guys. Yeah, maybe only a certain percentage will upgrade. But those other percentages that are out there, all those extra bodies, now at least gave it a shot and understand what it is. And now you have another way of going after those guys. And maybe they don't upgrade today. Maybe they do it 4 months from now.
Right. It just gives you an avenue to solve a different problem for them. right? Maybe the product you have doesn't address the core problem. You can come up with another product that addresses that core problem they're facing. And frankly, like you said, it gives you more opportunity. One other thing I want to break down to outside of just the offer, right? Because that's one other thing that can be difficult is like, well, all right, well, great. I sat down, I built my test drive for these people. How did they see it? Like I spent $100 on Google Ads and nobody bought. What the hell? So I want to talk about one of the other ways, a little more tactical on like taking your back end, bringing it to the front end, and then now actually distributing that offer. And in my eyes, there is a difference between affiliates and acquisition, right? One, acquisition is generally a strategy and affiliates is a distribution, right?
Yep.
And affiliates is the shortcut. Well, you don't need an acquisition strategy, right? You have the distribution channel that's done all of the acquisition strategy on their end.
Yep.
You just need to find people who align with your message, right? And so if you're a political thing, you want political affiliates. If, say, you are a tech thing, you want tech affiliates, right? And whatever your world may be. But that is one of the ways to build a shortcut into distributing that offer. You don't have to learn Google Ads. You don't have to learn what keywords matter. You don't have to learn, what the buzzwords are, where to place your ads, or any of those things, what your demographic is. You find an affiliate that matches your offer, your message, whatever, to the closest you can find. And then you distribute your resources to them. And then based on what they put out to you, you have a very short feedback loop. They didn't click any of these links. This subject line performed the best. Hey, this one link outperformed every other click 3-1. What's going on? Hey, when they landed on this page, they're far more likely to convert. Great. Now you can take all of that and build an acquisition strategy around it, right? Now you know what buzzwords to use. Now you know what keywords to use. Now you know what the page should look like. Now you know what they care about. And you can go out and build your own acquisition strategy. I would always still rely on affiliates. They're a great channel.
They are a great channel.
But now you can go and build your own acquisition strategy and have some more meaningful amount of control over what you do.
The problem with affiliates is while it's a great channel, you have zero control.
Yep.
So if somebody else comes along and pays them more money and has a better offer, because they have a limited bandwidth too, now all of a sudden you get nothing.
Yep.
So your business can scale very quickly, but it can also fall very quickly if that's your only acquisition channel. So multiple acquisition channels are the key. Going back to leads for a minute, back to the first step. One of the things that people don't think about sometimes when it comes to just leads themselves, right? If we talk about just getting somebody into your universe that hasn't spent any money, is that, most people tie up, they're like, I have a real estate offer, I want to get real estate leads, or I have a trading offer, I want to get trading leads. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can take a step back and you can broaden who you're going after. So for instance, in the real estate world, lots of people are trying to target real estate investors directly. What we did is we actually targeted people that were interested in improving their financial situation. Much bigger pocket, right? You couldn't spend as much money on the names for sure. And then we basically nurtured those things and worked through it and then found out, okay, which of those guys are interested in fixing their financial situation through real estate or through trading or through insurance or through BizOp or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of bucket yourself off into these buckets. In the beginning, for us, we just focused on the real estate names and let the rest go. But eventually you build strategic partners in those other areas and you can start passing off those leads and work off of your lead cost. That worked really well. And I think that sometimes people don't take a step back and they get so narrowed, right? We're niche.
We only serve these people.
Yeah, exactly. And instead, figure out, okay, what's universal? Is there a step back that I can make and pull in a bigger pile of names into this world and just figure it out, right? That's in essence what we're doing with Centurion against MP.
Yeah.
Is MP's names for the most part are interested in trading. Our names were focused on investors. But I do know a percentage of traders want to invest and a percentage of investors want to trade. What that percentage is, we still don't know yet. We're working through those numbers still. But it's a way of bringing names into one universe and then converting them to another area. And it is hard sometimes.
Right.
In the real estate world, we basically brought names in on an infomercial and then had to try to convert them through direct mail, which they're two different mediums. So that can be harder. But at the end of the day, you can still make it super profitable if you can line up all your metrics. And it just gives you another way, like you said, take a step back and just think about it differently because the fact is most of the competition isn't going to do that. They're going to go to Google and put an ad in for a real estate investor and then try to go through and go that route.
Well, they're far more likely to focus on a need than a pain, right? They're going to focus on the opportunity instead of the deficit, right? If you're a realtor and you go and you're like, I'm going to run ads and I'm going to run ads on the keyword buy house. Great. Yeah. You're like, you will get a bunch of people who want to buy a house, right? Or anything that involves buying a house. But if you put a keyword on the deficit, right, which is bigger space or, more square feet or, 3 bedrooms or whatever, right? Like, what's the deficit? They don't have enough space. They're about to have another kid. They don't have a garage. Like, you focus on the deficit, you'll actually get probably someone who's even more qualified, because you could just type in buy house and then any other tail behind it, like buy house in Africa and or South Korea, and you're like competing with people who don't even actually want what you're saying, but they just typed the magic keywords.
And it comes down to cost. So what you're saying is like, hey, you can go much more direct and much more tighter. And what I'm saying is you can actually go the other direction and you just write buy house. If you can get the names cheap enough that eventually they work down to you, then open up your funnel. But, the best offer ever is one that you ultimately can mail to the white pages, right? The white pages, they're my age, right? Somebody that's got an address, you can mail to every address in the friggin' US and it responds, right? That's the best offer ever if it responds at a great price. But if you've got something very unique to sell, you can narrow that all the way down and you can get very specific. But both models work. You just got to decide which one you're running.
Yeah, like if you're just starting out, right? A great way to compete on cost, right? So you're not spending a bunch to compete with everyone and their brother is to look at the deficit. But the other thing I wanted to talk about here, and I think you nailed it, is in my eyes, bigger is brander, right? And one of the things that really stuck out to me with my time in the financial publishing space was that the bigger we got on the front end, the more the promo had to incorporate the story of the person they were engaging with.
Yep.
Right. And it wasn't so much about selling them the next product. It was about selling them the person and the relationship. It's like, all right, hey, here's this guy's story. And you build that connection. And what you're doing, right, is you're branding, right? You're not trying to sell them the next product. You're trying to sell them on why this person can help you or why here is the right area for you to be in. And if you can establish that level of connection, right? Because that's all a brand is. It's just connecting things that may not be correlated into one thing that is your thing, which all of those things are correlated into, right? Maybe it's Silicon Valley and like VC and then, small tech. Like, okay, well, those 3 things are 3 separate things, but all bundled together, those reflect X person or X opportunity, right? And so if you care about those 3 things, now you'll care about this person and you'll care about what they have to say next. So to me, another way, if you want to go bigger, go brander, right? Get them to correlate the core components of what you do or who you are, depending on what kind of business you're in, and bundle them together. And if they care about those things, you've got a fan, right? Which goes beyond a customer. And so if you're already at the point where you're like, hey, my front end's working just fine. Like I don't need to compete on the, weird keywords, or I don't need to get started with affiliates. Like I'm already spending $1 million a month. Thanks a lot for nothing. Like this part's for you is if you want to go bigger, go brander. Take those core components, bundle them together, create fans, and you will get way bigger and like you'll get way more attention because like you said, you'll have mass appeal, right? You're not selling this niche solution. You're not selling them tech stocks, right? You're not selling them crypto, whatever, right? You're selling the story. Hey, I love Silicon Valley. Great. Correlate Silicon Valley with small tech stocks. Okay, great. Now, like the amount of people who live in those universes is way bigger than people who are small tech investors, right? Because like if you just try to say, small tech investors, this is an awesome opportunity. Okay, you're going to get all small tech investors, right? But if you say Silicon Valley executive discovers small, I'm going to use EV, even though that's kind of old news, right? But like small EV company that's about to, take advantage of the next wave. Whoa, You could either be interested in EV or Silicon Valley or, or whatever this new wave is, right? This new green wave, whatever, right? Like now you can take one small piece of it, and then as they go through whatever your story is, right? Now they say, oh, I like Silicon Valley and look what they just discovered, XYZ.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is one of those ones that acquisition, front of house, front ends, all this, it's like, it's a gargantuan burger.
It is.
And you just have to take one bite out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Probably the biggest mistake I see people make is they don't pick a way and then run down that path. They're constantly shiny object syndrome, jumping from one to the other. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they get nowhere.
And they tried to duplicate 7 offers 7 different times.
Exactly.
And understand why it never works 100%.
Yeah. So I think just stick with the path, figure out what you're going to do, go down that path.
And the truth is, we'll continue to revisit this, and we'll take another bite out of this, and we'll take another bite out of this. By the time you've heard 7 different things of years of experience of learning how to scale and go bigger, you'll be way better at acquisition than probably 99% of people out there doing business today.
Yep, for sure.
Well, I know we want to get some fencing done, so why don't we go run some fencing, and we'll see them next week.
Sounds great. Talk to you later.
You've been listening to Marketing from the Edge podcast. If you want to hear more of our thoughts every week, visit marketingedgepod.com. We'll share more of our very best lessons, thoughts, strategies for growing a business, as well as some personal stories here from the edge of the world. Invest a couple minutes of your morning and we'll give you the blueprint to growing your business from where it's at today to where you want it to be. That's marketingedgepod.com. If you want to reach out to us directly, feel free to email Cody at marketingedgepod.com and you might get a surprise bonus.